Hello, my name is Marton Robinson. I'm a Black person wearing a white hat, black t-shirt with a white background. Welcome everyone to Radical Experiment, making space and making space and breaking space, a democracy machine, fellow showcase. And we're gonna start this out with Astrid. And I'm gonna speak just for a few minutes in Spanish. Just a disclaimer, my first language is Spanish. Y solamente quiero decir de que es extraño hablar en inglés a una persona que hable en español. Entonces voy a tratar de alguna forma ser fluido en la conversación y si me trago por ahí o se me confunden las palabras, mil disculpas de antemano. Astrid, bienvenida, gracias por esta conversación, es un placer tenerte. And I would really like to have you introduce yourself and then we could start our conversation.
Bien. Hola, pues yo soy Astrid, una mujer negra con una camisa blanca y unos auriculares rojos.
Gracias. So,
Hi, I'm Astrid, a Black woman with in a white shirt and with red headphones.
so we're going to start this conversation like with language. As I mentioned earlier, I'm a Spanish speaker, and I think language is what set somehow this conversation, and also it sets the word that we're going to be talking about today, which is a parsley massacre, right? And Astrid, you want to explain where this word or the idea behind this word, where how you conceptualize this work, and I don't want to kind of like tell the story. I think it would be better if you explain to us what is the parsley massacre.
Genial. Bueno, voy a empezar comentándoles un poco y luego les comparto imágenes para ilustrar lo que estoy comentando. Bueno, la masacre de Perejil es una masacre que ocurre en 1937 entre la frontera de República Dominicana con Haití.
Cool. So I'm going to start by commenting, and then I'm going to share some images about what I'm commenting. So the massacre, the Parsley massacre, was something that happened during 1937, and that happened in the border between Dominican Republic and Haiti.
Y bueno, estos dos países comparten isla, entonces estamos hablando de un territorio en donde la frontera ocurren unas dinámicas culturales bastante porosas, y en donde niños haitianos, niñas haitianos estudian en República Dominicana y luego vuelven a su casa a Haití, y trabajadoras trabajan en Haití y vuelven a su casa en República Dominicana. Entonces son unas dinámicas culturales bastante vivas, en donde casi todas las personas en el borde son bilingües, o muchos de ellos tienen doble nacionalidad.
So these two countries share an island. They're both located in one island. So it's one territory with one border. And it's a very interesting cultural dynamic, because some kids, for example, who live in Haiti go to study in Dominican Republic, or people who live in Dominican Republic go to work in Haiti. And so it's a very lively cultural life, and a lot of people are bilingual in the island.
Y bueno, yo empecé a interesarme en este tema porque viví 5 años en Chile, y allí vivía en casas de migrantes, arrendando una habitación, y en varias de estas casas la mayoría de la gente que vivía allí eran colombianos, dominicanos y haitianos. Entonces fui bastante partícipe de, por un lado, las dinámicas de las políticas de migración chilenas, que son completamente racistas, y por otro lado, las dinámicas que se vivían adentro de estas casas, que era ya como comprender un poco los procesos históricos de cada región, de cada país.
So I got interested in this topic because I lived in Chile for 5 years. I lived in migrant homes, and I used to rent rooms there. And I used to share that space with people from Colombia, Haiti, Dominican Republic. And I started understanding part of the dynamics of these countries. I also got to understand the Chilean migration policy, which is very racist. And I also understood the dynamics between inside these homes, their history, their cultural histories.
And that's kind of what I find interesting about your work, right? That somehow it's an intersection between anthropology, sociology, and also your personal life, mixed with all this background and belief that you have coming from Colombia and speaking not only, speaking Spanish and understanding those dynamics living in Chile. Can you expand kind of like in this idea of how diasporic this racism is and how also it kind of shares this idea of borderland or borderless and some, and somehow that there's a borderland, but at the same time there is a borderless when we talk about Maroon culture or the movement between this migration, right, in all Central America and South America.
Súper. Sí, pues yo creo que con este proyecto de pronunciar perejil en la masacre, pues estoy como acercándome a dos o varias reflexiones, ¿no? Por un lado, entender los procesos migratorios de las personas afrodescendientes en Latinoamérica y, ¿cierto?, en el sur del continente, sur del continente de América, desde una posición política, decisión política, histórica en el contexto colonial, como lo fue el cimarronaje, ¿cierto?, y la construcción de los palenques y los quilombos, pero por otro lado también como las poblaciones afrodescendientes hemos estado en constante proceso de migración, ¿no? Cómo entender los flujos migratorios de los haitianos hacia República Dominicana, luego de los haitianos hacia 2014 hacia Brasil por la construcción de los estadios para el Mundial, luego de Brasil hacia Chile, ¿cierto? Y cómo la política migratoria chilena busca empobrecer a los inmigrantes y con ellos también a los inmigrantes racializados. Pues hay un sesgo, hay una mirada de la migración en Chile, y luego como estas personas haitianas luego pues están queriendo ir hacia Estados Unidos y entonces tienen todo este proceso de pasar hacia el centro del país, del continente para ir hacia el norte. Y entonces pasan por el tapón del Darién, que es la frontera entre Colombia y Panamá, ¿cierto? Entonces, cómo constantemente hemos estado las poblaciones afrodescendientes en procesos de migración y cómo también en Colombia, por ejemplo, a niveles internos, las migraciones por el conflicto armado son en su mayoría de personas afrodescendientes o de pueblos originarios que viven en sectores ruralizados hacia las grandes ciudades. Entonces, cómo el movimiento es político.
Super. So I started understanding the pronunciation of the word parsley during the massacre, and that brought me to many reflections. Under the process of immigration in South America, or the southern part of the Americas, it can be a political decision that was seen in the colonial Marooning, but I can realize that we Black people have been migrating since the beginning. We can understand the flux of the Haitian people that migrated from Haiti to Dominican Republic. Then they migrated from Haiti to Brazil when they were building stadiums in 2014. Then from Brazil to Chile. And then Chile has an impoverishing racial migration policy, where and then Haitian people want to migrate to the U.S. and they have to go through the center of the Americas, the big continent. They have to go through this border between Colombia and Panama. So the process of migration, we also have the process of migration inside Colombia, where we see that guerrillas force mostly indigenous and Black people to leave their homes.
Yeah, and within that idea of movement, right? I think movement is not only political, but also is a way to surviving, right? And it's a way to survive as a community, and also a way in which the language, if we go back to that idea of language, right? Because most of these communities, when they start moving, they start acquiring language or some sort of coding, right? That is implicit by yeah, it's kind of implicit, or it's kind of like by consensus that you can't kind of like document. It just is a live, somehow it's a live language that it exists because it needs to survive, and the way to survive is like under this coding, right? So maybe you could talk about that, because I think there's a lot of coding in your work, in the sense that if we think about the way you relate your work with parsley, right, is within this idea of, yes, the massacre, but if we think in terms of plants, parsley was something that is quite common in the island, and it's used almost every day as part of the daily life for medicine, or also just for cooking. So how those coding and elements are implicit in your work, and what's the meaning behind those coding, and the idea of cleansing somehow, language cleansing, right?
Este es un proyecto que a mí me gusta mucho. Ha sido varios años de trabajar en él, entonces todo el tiempo estoy haciéndome preguntas por ir o reafirmando como las intuiciones que he tenido con el proyecto, o ir desmitificando como cosas, ¿no? Y cada vez en las conversaciones es como que van surgiendo nuevas cosas. Cierto, pues esa masacre ocurre porque el gobierno y la élite dominicana en los años 30 hasta los 60 buscaba construir un proceso de blanqueamiento social, o de limpieza eugenésica o limpieza étnica, ¿cierto? Con el propósito de repoblar estos territorios donde que estaban habitados por haitianos o por descendientes de haitianos, a habitarlos por personas europeas, ¿cierto? Como ellos lo llamaban directamente, para civilizar el contexto dominicano y evitar la haitianización del territorio dominicano, porque para ellos Haití o haitiano era igual entonces a retraso, barbarie, incivilizado. Entonces estamos hablando de una masacre que ocurre en menos de 80 años, ¿cierto? Pero estamos hablando de un proceso colonial de blanqueamiento social que se desarrolló fuertemente en todo el sur del continente en el siglo XIX, basados en las nociones de el racismo científico, ¿cierto? Entonces, como eso que sucedió en el siglo XIX, pues hace menos de 80 años estaba sucediendo aquí, muy cerquita de nosotros. Entonces, lo que hacía el ejército dominicano durante 5 días en octubre de 1937 era exigirle a las personas de toda la zona fronteriza que ellos identificaran como posibles haitianos pronunciar la palabra perejil. Quienes no pudieran pronunciar la palabra perejil en español, como una persona originaria de República Dominicana, y que dieran indicios o señales de que eran haitianos o tenían ascendencia haitiana por el creol, ¿cierto? Eran entonces asesinados. Entonces tú hablabas de cómo se van construyendo varios códigos o varios idiomas o formas de comunicarse en estos procesos de migración, y los creolismos, por ejemplo, entonces es un resultado de esos procesos de migración forzada o política, ¿no? Y cómo entonces la palabra perejil en español fue un detonante o un código para evidenciar nacionalismos y extranjeros.
Yeah, I really like this project. I've been on this project for many years, and I've been questioning it. I've been posing many questions and reconsidering my own intuitions, demystifying some things, and always like in conversations, new things come up. So this massacre in Dominican Republic in the 1930s was part of a racial cleansing project in order to repopulate the Dominican Republic and to repopulate the island with European population, and to get rid of Haitian people or people of Haitian descent, because Europeans were looked as civilizers, and they wanted to avoid a sort of Haitianization of the island. Haitian people were seen as barbaric, uncivilized, so they were looking for a sort of colonial social whitening. This was supported by some kind of scientific racism that was going on at the beginning of the 1900s. And it's interesting that this really happened really close to here so the Dominican army was ordered to go to the border and to search for people who possibly looked Haitian, or who possibly were Haitian, and they asked these people to pronounce the word parsley. And if they couldn't pronounce the word parsley in Spanish, perejil, in a good way, they were killed. And so it's interesting that you talked about coding, because the Haitian Creole, for example, is a result of the political banishing of people. And in this case, the word parsley, perejil in Spanish, was a sort of code to differentiate nationals from foreigners or non-nationals.
And that's where I think your work is not only important but also necessary, right? Because as you say, you're trying to desmitificar. Let me think of a word in Spanish. Kind of like, break the myth. I'm gonna put it this way. You're trying to break the myth around these issues. I think like we think about Blackness or these colonial processes in terms of Central America as something that is distant, but I think it's still happening, right? And the way it's structured is just keep repeating. And we were talking earlier how those processes are also repeating through the bananeras enclave, or the banana enclaves, right? And how those processes also force community to be segregated for certain areas and have them somehow diminish in terms of the resources that they could access. So I'm curious in terms of maybe sharing the conceptual and showing us a bit more about the work and how these ideas and symbols come together in the piece, and how it's installed somehow.
Claro, mostremos las imágenes, porque la gente está como, ¿de qué me están hablando? Voy a compartir mi pantalla, me informan por favor si se escucha bien, si se ve bien. Ok, este es un video que hace parte del proyecto. Este proyecto está compuesto por 2 videos, una instalación de baldosas hidráulicas y un dibujo sobre la pared.
Sure, let's share the images, because people are probably, what are we talking about? So this is a video of a project that has 2 videos. One is about one has the hydraulic tiles.
Okay.
Pesi, perejil, perejil, pesi, perejil, perejil, pesi, 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 perejil, perejil, perejil.
Ok. Em, de este video me interesaba, bueno, este video nace porque me pregunté cómo se escucha la palabra perejil pronunciada por una persona haitiana en español y en creol. Y cuántas veces fue dicha esta palabra y cuántas de estas personas pudieron demostrar la validez de su vida al pronunciar la palabra perejil. Entonces pensaba como en una performance en mantra de esta palabra que finalmente, no, o de las ideas que movieron obligar a las personas a pronunciar esta palabra, que finalmente le dieron la muerte a más de 15.000 haitianos y descendientes de haitianos en la frontera entre República Dominicana y Haití.
Okay, so this video was born because I wanted to know here how the word parsley, perejil, sounds in both Creole and Spanish. And I was thinking how many times this word was pronounced as a way to demonstrate the validity of some people's lives. So this word kind of became a sort of mantra. And I also thought of the idea behind this process of forcing people to say a word, and then 15,000 Haitian people dying because they couldn't pronounce this word in the border between Dominican Republic and Haiti.
Yeah, and I think there is a power in naming, right? The ability to name things and to allow yourself to give them a validation. For me, I don't know, I really love the video because the simplicity of it and how you could actually feel that is un asunto de vida o muerte. Is like, you know, it's something that if you don't say it right, you might die, right? And I have an experience. I used to work at the airport, and at the airport, like we were paid to yeah, we were paid every time we come across a fake passport. So our job somehow was like to be quite eagle eye over passport. And a couple of times we have Dominicans who were traveling with fake Costa Rican passports. And one of the techniques that they taught us to figure out if they were Costa Rican or not, you start asking them for their address, you start asking them for, you know, direction to the place they live, what is closed, what is the supermarket name, and then you just hit it with it. And then you say, what's the national bird of Costa Rica? And most of them would say something like Jugiro, which is Jiguiro. And it's one of those words that is also hard to say if you don't live in the country or you're not close to the community to pronounce it, right? And that was the way in which we figured out, oh, you're not Costa Rican, right? And yeah, it's still been used and it's I would say it's a colonial cleansing system, and that same system of cleansing is reflected in the tile, right? As you mentioned, the tile were built to kind of like give the city a more sterile environment, right? Stop the propagation of illness in the jungle. And for me, it's this idea of bringing the museum into the jungle, fighting against the landscape, right? Fighting against the jungle and try to civilize this jungle. And as you mentioned earlier, right? How this otherness become into this type of yeah, the otherness become exotic, become dirty, right? So you somehow you have to purify. And it comes to play within the idea of the residential school, like in the context of the Turtle Island, right? Which I kind of hate the name Turtle Island. I like to talk more in terms of Atayala, which is the Kuno name for the Americas in a way. And in terms of residential schools in North America, Central America, and South America, the whole idea of it was to clean the body or clean the spirit of the indigenous or Black presence, right? So I really like the idea that you're taking the parsley as this element that is not only talking about this massacre, but is also in a way symbolic to kind of like come to not say peace with the massacre, but somehow to acknowledge it. And as you say, right, like you're rewriting history by putting things in context and explaining it within the context that you're living and within your body somehow.
Wow, no sabía que trabajaste en un aeropuerto. De hecho, una vez me detuvieron en el aeropuerto en el norte de Chile, que es la frontera con Perú, ¿cierto? Y el factor indicador de quienes no éramos obvio chilenos y que posiblemente estábamos cometiendo algún crimen legal en políticas de migración, pues éramos las únicas 2 mujeres negras que estábamos en la fila. Entonces, entiendo el sesgo racial para identificar quiénes son las personas que están viajando regularmente y quiénes no.
Wow, I didn't know that you worked in an airport. I was once stopped in one airport in the north of Chile, which is the border between Chile and Peru. And the one factor of non-Chileanness, so to say, is the factor that we might have been committing a sort of possible crime in the immigration policies was it was just the only 2 Black women in the line. So yeah.
Bueno, y porque pensé en la baldosa hidráulica como un símbolo con el que pudiera hablar no solamente de la masacre de Perejil, sino también como este proceso de limpieza social. Es por lo que comentabas tú de que históricamente se concibe la baldosa hidráulica en el contexto de Latinoamérica, que primero llega entonces a Cuba, a México, a República Dominicana y otros países del sur, como a los centros comerciales con el propósito de construir superficies lavables y evitar las enfermedades virales, no solamente con el propósito ornamental, sino que tenían también este propósito de limpieza. Me parecía interesante pensar cómo una baldosa, cómo se podía construir un embaldosado de toda la frontera, ¿cierto? A la izquierda tenemos Haití y a la derecha tenemos a República Dominicana, y esta es toda la zona fronteriza en donde ocurre la masacre, que es específicamente en el norte del país durante esos 5 días, pero en el resto de la frontera pues vienen construyendo unas campañas para distanciar un territorio del otro, dividir un territorio del otro, y actualmente se sigue construyendo esta frontera, un muro. Me parecía interesante ver cómo el perejil pues es una planta que es utilizada para desintoxicar las entrañas, el intestino, ¿cierto? Como todo el sistema digestivo, pero también puede ser utilizado como una planta para sahumar la casa, ¿cierto? Y eliminar las energías negativas de la casa. Entonces, el propósito que tenía el ejército y la élite dominicana era precisamente eso, limpiar la frontera con el propósito de eliminar lo que le molestaba, lo que le fastidiaba dentro de su plan colonial y de desarrollo y urbanización social. Entonces encontré pues como una relación entre la baldosa y el perejil allí, ¿no? Con eso, para limpiar la frontera.
So why did I choose the hydraulic tiles as a symbol of the Parsley massacre and the social cleansing? So I was commenting to you that the hydraulic tiles were brought to the Americas First, they arrived to Cuba, and then Dominican Republic, and then to other social or commercial centers in the Americas. And one of the reasons they were brought and they were used was to avoid diseases. They had on the one hand, they had a aesthetic purpose, and on the other hand, they had a hygienic purpose. So then in this island, during those 5 days of massacre, when they were trying to divide the border, to create the border, they're actually creating a wall that's still being created. They also used the word parsley, the word parsley, but parsley itself as a herb is used to a sort of detox plant to cleanse the bowels and to help the digestive system, but it's also used as a sort of ritual to sort of get rid of the bad energies in the house. So it was I saw the connection between the parsley and parsley as a plant and parsley as the word they used in this massacre. Yeah.
Está silenciado, Marton.
Sorry about that. No, I was saying I think this is a great transition to start talking about the next project that we're gonna be exploring somehow. And it's the one related with plants. You know, I hate using the idea of magical, mythical, or shamanic, right? Because it's so implicit or it's been used in so many ways that it kind of lose its real meaning. And I like to talk more in terms of spiritual, right? Not even in terms of religion, but more like this personal and you know, community belief that it's kind of like passed on through oral history. And talking about language, I think medicine or plants is one of those elements that as Afro descendants, we cannot carry on in our body, right? Like as you say, if you're having problems with your bowels, somehow you know that you need to drink parsley, or your body is kind of asking for this type of medicine. So maybe we could start talking about that. What's your engagement or how you exploring this idea of medicine and, let's say, wellness, or how you would define this, a medicine? I don't know.
Pues yo lo defino como medicina porque yo nací con asfixia y mi familia, yo soy de Medellín, pero mi familia es del Pacífico colombiano, que es el territorio con mayor población afrodescendiente, uno de los territorios con mayor población afrodescendiente en Colombia. Y recuerdo que mi abuela paterna le mandó a mi mamá unas botellas con hierbas y un alcohol tradicional con el propósito de que yo me tomara ese remedio para que se me quitara la asfixia. Yo era de las que estaba constantemente en el hospital con nebulizador, hospitalizada, y a partir de que yo me tomo esas botellas, que son unas botellas que se rezan, ¿no? Que se les da una oración y son personales, y las mandan desde el Chocó desde la casa de mis abuelos hasta donde yo vivía en otro departamento, yo me curo de la asfixia. Entonces yo digo que es medicina. Y por ahí empieza como realmente mi interés en el tema de la medicina tradicional o ancestral. Y también tiene que ver porque mi abuelo paterno era practicante de la medicina ancestral, y en varias ocasiones cuando iba a su casa de visita veía como sus vecinas y sus vecinos llegaban con el propósito de que les curara alguna enfermedad, rezándoles o dándoles alguna planta. Entonces ha estado constantemente esa experiencia de la medicina y la espiritualidad de matriz africana camuflada en lo católico en mi casa.
So I call it medicine. I define it as medicine. I was born with a respiratory disease, and I'm from Medellin, but my grandparents are from the Colombian Pacific, where there's a big Black population. And my grandmother used to send my mom a bottle with herbs and alcohol. And when I was a kid, I used to be to spend a lot of time in the hospital. I used to be hospitalized a lot. So I drank this bottle, and this bottle had been previously preyed upon. It was sent from the Chocó to Medellin, and I was healed. So that's why I call it medicine. And I think that's why I got interested in this kind of medicine, traditional medicine. My grandfather on my father's side was a practitioner of ancestral medicine, and I would always see their neighbors going to see him and asking him to heal them through praying, through plants. So this kind of medicine has always been part of my life, and it's a kind of medicine with African descent, but camouflaged with Catholic clothes, let's say.
And and I find that quite powerful, right? The idea that again it's naming, believing, right? Like if somehow you project it, it's gonna happen. And it's not it's not something magical. It's just something that it's there, and you know it's there, and there is some healness from these plants that we could observe. I like that you play a lot with syncretism, right? You understand colonial strategies and techniques, and you appropriate them in a way into your work and play with them. And beyond the idea of it's not fiction, I think it's honestly that you're framing this as medicine. I also think it's powerful. Like, we like to think in terms of voodoo as this pseudoscience, or this kind of like magical and mythical science that these specific people do, right? And I like to think about it as science, right? Why not think about voodoo or putting needles into objects just the same way we think about the idea of acupuncture, right? So there's something there in how we approach these knowledge and these science that I find value in your work, that is questioning not only like traditional medicine, but also science per se, and that you're using anthropology and sociology to navigate those ideas. I think it's powerful. Can you show some of these words and how they kind of relate, and how you present something like this within the sphere or the artwork? That's kind of what I'm curious, right? Because there's some kind of like a twist in trying to deal with these subjects in a way that they're not taken into something that is not and just presented in the same perspective as you would be presenting some sort of science research. And that's in a way the way I navigate your work, like from this scientific perspective, and I could see the tools, the methodology that you're using to get to this product. So I would like you to talk about those ideas.
Bueno, este es otro proyecto que también amo porque ha tenido varios procesos. Empezó acá en Medellín, luego lo continué en Sao Paulo y luego en el Chocó, en el departamento donde son mis papás, mi mamá, mis abuelas y abuelos, y luego lo expongo acá en Medellín. Entonces ha tenido ese procesos migratorios como de entender cómo se lee este tema de la medicina natural en las comunidades afrodescendientes en Brasil, por ejemplo, los puentes o las similitudes que hay de un territorio a otro, o dentro del país, dentro de Colombia también, cómo se lee de un territorio a otro la medicina natural. Entonces voy a empezar compartiendo un video, que es un video que la música, empieza por la música, la compuse con un amigo que se llama únicamente Andrés, y ya luego decido volver esta música un video, ¿no? Y en la letra de la canción podemos escuchar en español, algunos de las especialistas de la medicina natural y algunas de las plantas que son utilizadas en estos procesos de sanación, pero también a mí me interesa no meterme en las aguas o en las arenas de la documental, porque creo que ahí uno empieza a hablar ya de la veracidad o la falsedad y me parece más interesante hablar de la ficción. Entonces, en la letra aparecen unos procedimientos que no son desarrollados con esas plantas, pero me interesaba jugar un poco con eso, ¿no? Entonces, se los voy a presentar.
Well, so there's another project which I love too. It's gone through different processes. I started it in Medellin, then I continued it in Sao Paulo, and then it went to El Chocó, this region where my parents are from, my grandparents are from too. So it's gone through this kind of migratory process, and a kind of understanding of how to read the communities of African descent, the bridges, similarities between different territories, or even inside Colombia. So there's at the beginning, there's music, which was composed by a friend, Andres, and that music became a video. And in the lyrics in Spanish, you can hear some natural medicine specialists and some plants. But I'm not interested in creating a documentary, which is more in between the falseness and reality. I'm more interested in fiction. And in the lyrics, you can also hear these medicine plants.
El chinango va por tu cabeza, te la va a arrancar como matar ratón. Un saumerio de suelda con suelda, pa' que le corte la respiración. Invisible entra el yerbatero, en su casa el brebaje dejó. Desde el techo y con el aguacero, el maleficio ataca el corazón. Por todos los hijos que se llevó, por todas las hijas que se llevó, por todas las madres que desplazó, por todos los padres que desplazó, por toda la sangre que derramó y corrió por el río Andáqueda. Se merece el secreto del zángano. 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 Ay, merece el secreto del zángano. Merece el secreto.
Beautiful. Thank you. I mean, it seriously is mesmerizing the way you film these videos. They're the simplicity of them. They're powerful, and I don't know. It's hard not to think about spirituality and Black spirituality, Central South America spirituality, right, or Caribbean spirituality when I'm seeing the video, and I would like you to maybe like expand on that idea and how it had been received, right, in Colombia because I know you also show in other places outside Colombia. And I would like to know what was the reception, right? Because as I mentioned earlier, sometimes I think this kind of work can be complicated to explain to people beyond the borders in which it supposedly exists, right? Because we sort of have a limited understanding of Blackness, and the understanding of most of the understanding that we have about Blackness or Afro descendants come from the US, right? And that history has been kind of like populated the imaginary of Blackness. And even when it comes to Central America and South America, we're talking about those type of ideas and not the one that we have right next to us, right? And I think it's powerful also because, I don't know, it's hard for me to call it art because it's more like a living, it's like a live, almost like a living experience, right? It's those coding that is that language that you're creating for yourself. You're creating this language for a specific community that somehow gravitates towards it, and still maybe if they not engage into that spirituality, there is something there that I could grab and somehow relate to my family or relate to other experiences. And I really appreciate and applaud that. And I thank you for letting me experience those kind of feeling just through a video, right? And yeah, I don't know how can you present this and receive, or what's the reception, or have you thought of the public that you present in this work, or it's more open to interpretation?
Bueno, este proyecto yo lo he realizado en dos pues, partes, como un proceso del proyecto fue en una residencia acá en Medellín y otra fue en Sao Paulo. Entonces pude tener como la oportunidad de ponerlo en dos contextos territoriales distanciados, pero evidenciar como los puentes discursivos, ¿no? Como con el candomblé de Brasil, ¿cierto? Que es como de matriz africana, y pues en Colombia no hay ninguna religión de matriz africana presencialmente como lo hay en Brasil, pero dentro del catolicismo está allí como toda esta matriz africana, ¿no? Como unos enclaves, unos códigos que uno puede evidenciar cuando está en los territorios y presencia una misa, una ceremonia católica en donde hay unos lenguajes, unos códigos que no son netamente católicos. Entonces, bueno, el proyecto ha tenido como la oportunidad de estar en estos dos territorios y yo ser consciente de las similitudes, de cómo lo africano está allí presente. Y he tenido la oportunidad en este proceso de contar con el acompañamiento de sabedoras y sabedores, que es como llamamos a las personas que son conocedoras expertas en los territorios de estos conocimientos, y como poder tener allí de la fuente la información. Entonces, a medida que voy desarrollando el proyecto, me pregunto por cuál es la responsabilidad social, política, que tiene llevar estos conocimientos, esta información a espacios expositivos como museos o galerías o salas de exposiciones, ¿no? Y entonces he empezado a trabajar no con las plantas específicas con las que se trabajan los procedimientos médicos, sino con germinados de semillas que compro en el supermercado. Entonces, como ficcionar, ¿no? Como construir unos jardines de plantas que pueden ser plantas mágico-religiosas o plantas que sanan, pero realmente son germinados a los que yo les doy toda la intención de sanación. Y mientras Arturo va interpretando, puede irles mostrando las imágenes.
So this process, I've realized this process in two parts mainly. I have one was in a residency in Medellin, and the other part was in Sao Paulo. And it's two different territories, but there's discursive bridges that unite these two territories. In Brazil, there's this sort of religion of African origin. In Colombia, we don't have something like that, but I can tell that there's Catholic practices that have strong African elements. They're not completely Catholic. And I've also been able to talk to the sabedores and sabedoras, which were knowers or experts of this ancestral knowledge. So I've accessed the source of information. And I've also thought of the social and political responsibility of bringing that knowledge into exhibition spaces like galleries, museums. So I haven't used the original medicine plants, but I've used sprouts or plants that I've bought in supermarkets as a sort of fiction of these medicinal plants. But I've put my intention on them to give them healing powers.
And I really like that, and I even find it funny. It's almost like you're creating your own sort of like exorcism, right? As you're taking these plants that have been capitalized and colonized, and they're almost prostituted in the supermarket, and then you bring it into this sacred space that you're creating for yourself. And not only that, is again like the syncretism, right? You mentioned how and I think it's the same in Costa Rica. Like, we don't have like per se a religion that is quite related more directly to the African spirituality. So everything is permeated through Catholicism, right? And most of the Central American communities might have a Black Persian, right? So I think that intersection and that syncretism between those imaginary and creating your own is quite valid, and it's powerful also. So we have 10 minutes more, so I don't know if we're gonna open up for questions or if you want to show us something more. I'm just trying to pace ourselves and let you know that we have 10 minutes more. So we could open up to questions, or maybe you could expand some more in terms of this idea of the syncretism, right? And the how Catholicism it's engraved within somehow Caribbean spirituality, or it is a mix, weird mix and ideas and things that comes in and then out, and quite vivid.
Creo que para responderte eso, pues hay un video de 1 minuto 20 que puedo compartir.
I think that to answer your question, there's a video. It's a 1 minute 20-second video that I can share and show you.
Y que brille para su alma la luz perpetua. Dale, Señor, el descanso eterno, y que brille para su alma la luz perpetua. Dale, Señor, el descanso eterno, y que brille para su alma la luz perpetua. Dale, Señor, el descanso eterno, y que brille para su alma la luz perpetua. Dale, Señor, el descanso eterno, y que brille para su alma la luz perpetua. Señor, el descanso eterno, y que brille para su alma la luz perpetua. Señor, el descanso eterno, y que brille para su alma la luz perpetua. Señor, el descanso eterno, y que brille para su alma la luz perpetua. Y que brille para su alma la luz perpetua. Señor, el descanso eterno, y que brille para su alma la luz perpetua.
Este video nace porque en el proceso en que estoy haciendo la investigación de las plantas medicinales, yo tenía el propósito de viajar al Chocó a ver, a meterme en cuanto funeral, entierro hubiera, ¿no? Compro mi tiquete para el 4 de diciembre y mi abuelo fallece el 2 de diciembre. Entonces, los entierros, el funeral fue de él. Y en una de estas ceremonias, allá se celebra la novena, que son 9 días de misas. En una de las misas había un sacerdote afrodescendiente. Eso no es muy común aquí en Colombia. Entonces, totalmente la experiencia de la misa para mí fue completamente diferente porque me empecé a fijar en la tela, cómo caía sobre el cuerpo, en los gestos de las manos, en cómo se respondía a las oraciones, el público respondía las oraciones y aparecía el canto de otra manera. Entonces me pregunté cuánto de católico hay aquí en esta ceremonia. Estoy siendo partícipe de una cosa que no es netamente africana ni católica, es como un tercer ser, una tercera presencia. eh, y por eso es eso.
And I don't know, I think that that third, sorry, you have to translate. I was just jumping in, excited.
So this video was born as a process of research of medicine plants in El Chocó. And I wanted to go to every funeral I could to do the research. And I bought my plane ticket booked it for the 4th of December, but my grandfather died on the December the 2nd. So the funeral was my grandfather's, and there was a 9-day ceremony, and there was also a black priest, which is something that does not often happen. And it was a different mass. I paid attention to all the hand gestures, the prayers, the way people answered, the chanting, and I could tell that it was not completely Catholic. It was not completely of African descent. It was a sort of third presence. It was a third element that was being born.
And that's where I was going to jump in the sense that, I don't know, when you talk about this third presence, right? I could kind of like take all your work and say that you're let's see how I can rephrase this. So the idea that you're creating this imaginary, that it's somehow a syncretism of multiple cultures or ideas that comes together, right? You're creating your own space that is kind of related not only to indigenous culture in the sense that if we go towards Mexico, there is this Nepantle, which means the in-between place, right? Or we're talking about American theory vortex, or the idea of the sinking place, right? I think that's the beauty, not only in terms of the Hill project, right? That it created other place, either say it or not say it, but there is an in-between place there that is kind of like the borderlands, right? And I really like it. And also it comes, there is this Costa Rican artist, Quinn Duncan. And he talks about this idea of how we have to create our own spirituality, right? And most of the time, creating our own spirituality means like just putting those imaginary out there. Like this video that you're creating is part of that culture, right? That's something that now you can relate to specific community. Say, how many times do you get to see a Black priest in a Central American country, right? The position of power that this person had within the community is really strong, like to really acknowledge it somehow. And I don't know, we still have like 1 minute, 2 minutes. So I'm gonna leave it up to you to close the conversation. And I would like to play something that I think might be related to your work at the end, just to close the shot. And thank you so much for letting me get into your work and somehow have this conversation. It's really a pleasure de escucharte y hablarte y Estos 3 últimos segundos voy a decirlos en español. Berraco, muchas gracias. Fuerte abrazo.
No, pues yo soy muy feliz de conversar contigo, Marton, porque también he visto tu trabajo y me gusta. Eh, y pues como eso, ¿no? La importancia de estas imágenes o estas presencias como espirituales dentro de los territorios, pero también dentro de o en posiciones de poder, que pues, normalmente hablamos de posiciones de poder como dentro de los escenarios de política, pero también hablar de las posiciones de poder espiritual en los territorios. Y em, entonces me parece importante, ¿no? Como pensar en todas las veces y el tiempo y las teorías y construcciones que se han hecho para que otras personas construyan imágenes sobre nosotras y cómo entonces al elaborar imágenes desde cuerpos y contextos afrodescendientes para públicos que esperemos sean también afrodescendientes es una posición de poder. La representación es un ejercicio de poder. Entonces, me parece importante como dignificar y traer el pasado para hablar de la ficción o de otras formas de narrarnos y dignificar nuestra existencia y participación activa en la construcción de historia y de regiones.
Seriously, thank you, thank you. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, happy to talk to you. I've seen your work and I really like it. And I think it's important the images, they're spiritual presences that are inside our territories. And I'm not only talking about the powerful, acquiring powerful positions in the political stages, I'm also talking about acquiring powerful spiritual positions in the territories. And it's important to think about all these theories, these times, these images that have been built about us, and I want and how we can elaborate and build our own images of ourselves as a sort of way to dignify ourselves and to look to our past and to look into our own territories, building our own dignification.
Thank you. We are running out of time. There's other conversations today, so I will encourage you to join us in the other ones. I'm gonna play a video while we go between conversations, and this is a Arta Kid video, and the name of the song is Black Lady Angels. Funny thing, this is a song that was written in Colombia. It's actually a Colombian song that it was produced in Mexico and the US. And it kind of tells that story, right? Like the history behind Black imagery and Catholicism somehow. So thank you so much, everyone. Hope to see you soon. And we're gonna have another talk with Astrid at 7 p.m. Eastern time. And join us. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Sharing the video.
When I walk into a church, I only see paintings of white angels. Painter, painting in our lives. Pictures of only white angels. Painter, painting in our time. In shadows of yesterday. Following strokes from ages gone. Painter painting saints in church. How do you know our Lord was wise?